It's Friday, Feedback Friday, the feedbackiest day of the week. It's Feedback Friday, and I got to do this one quick because busy day, not a ton of time, but I want to get to your feedback. All right, so there was a bit of confusion about people who, the Manly Monday video, about people, excuse me, thinking misery masculinity was a term other than one I made up. No, that's one I made up to describe this particular thing. And yeah, I do, I share the frustration of a lot of commenters about how different people can get away with different things and there isn't a set of common standards. And that was sort of the point that I was going for there. So I'm going to share your comments, as many as I can, in the brief time that I have. And like, I had so little time. Eileen's made a new help support this channel, but I haven't had a chance to put it into OBS yet. So it's the old one, but help support this channel, become a monthly patron, patreon.com/LeannaK, or buy a one-time Leanna Care session for someone who can use it but can't afford it. Coffee.com/LeannaK. All right. So getting into your feedback. It was my birthday yesterday, by the way. Thank you for the well wishes. And a few people even sent gifts, which I have learned to just say thank you. And one person sent me a Redbubble gift card, and I bought an Alistair from Hasbin Hotel shirt that says, "Does that make me insane?" So that helped a lot this week. I was happy. So getting right to the feedback. First comment from Monday's video. I think in general, it's a terrible idea to excuse bad behaviors just because they fit in someone's group designated box and not just for the people around them. I'd bet anything that these miserable men are hiding a whole slew of anxiety disorders and depression, and it would be far better for them to see these behaviors as unacceptable, but also, and more importantly, signs that they're not okay and they need help. We need to get better at saying both "that's not okay" and "are you okay" in tandem. And I have seen this week this tendency, and this is not a new tendency. This is not, alpha-lennial bashing here. This has always been a thing. Certain people have to externalize their own internal limits. So they'll blame other people for something that they are actually putting on themselves. And I used to be guilty of that myself. It does take work to stop, because when you stop blaming other people, then, and you realize nobody's made you, then you have to work through all that accumulated guilt and shame. And that's not fun. But on the bright side, you have less to feel guilty and shameful about going forward because you owned your shit. And one of the things that, misery masculinity does, it's like, the proper woman is a victim. That's the other side of it. It's not quite the same, because misery masculinity is rah, 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 I'm tough, I don't like anything, whereas the proper feminine victimization is nothing's my fault, you made me, I was forced. And obviously there's crossover, and the male version, that's really no different than Larry David going, "I couldn't help it, I can't stand Elmo's voice." It's the same externalization of responsibility. And that's not what adults do. Adults, you have self-control and you practice resiliency, or you get up and you leave before you're the asshole. But, there's other comments that handle this, but let's go on to the next one. This seems like one of those situations where there is no side rooting for. We have Larry David going mask off on Elmo and just trying to justify it with, "I can't stand his voice." And we have Will Wheaton basically trauma dumping and moral grandstanding under the guise of trying to make a statement about mental health. It's one big loop of people being miserable, lashing out at people and trying to justify it, and surrounding themselves with enablers to try to justify their actions. And the worst part is, it's people like Wheaton who are ironically making it harder for men to be in a healthier place with their mental health, because any man who's willing to be vulnerable and open up with their struggles would probably just be lumped in with the Will Wheatons of the world. If you ask me, this little outburst makes me consign Will Wheaton to the pile of people who use a victim mentality and make it their entire personality. I've been through a lot of crap in my life, albeit not to the extent of having PTSD. At the same time, I'm not going to let that define me. You know why? Because you end up like Will Wheaton with no sense of emotional self-control. And I'm normally not the type to peddle the whole, a man should be super stoic and thick-skinned and never let anything bother them or have any vulnerable moments talk. At the same time, there's a galaxy of difference between being vulnerable and basically having a glorified pity party. And I agree with that. I just want to add an extra because I think this is what the commenter is saying as well. I just want to say it in a different way so that, for the extra people who need that other way. I do agree that these very performative things, and again, this is true of, people coming forward, talking about the things that happened to them. Even authenticity, people are trying to fake it now. And a lot of people have lost touch with the real motivations for what they were doing. I mean, the Will Wheaton thing, he repeated himself in the Facebook post, which means he just, rattled it off and sent it. He didn't read it over again when he's, it's one of those things, he wanted to get it out there right away. And I'm not on Facebook a lot anymore because I find all the meta stuff toxic, and as loud as Twitter is, I don't know. It's people are putting their real names and faces to the garbage they spew on Facebook, and that I understand that less. I kind of that's not true. I do understand it. It's just not good for me to be around it. I have to maintain a positive attitude, and that doesn't mean Pollyanna-ing things, God no, but I take a lot of crap and people say a lot of really nasty things about me, and I rarely get sincere apologies for any of it. You notice I'm not saying never, I'm just saying rarely. I get a lot of explanations from people, but not really, yeah, that wasn't fair. It's a lot of, well, it came out the wrong way, or I shouldn't have done it there. And it just feels extremely dehumanizing to be reminded again and again and again that there are a lot of people I have to deal with for various reasons who do not give a shit about my feelings. And that's when you have to remind yourself that some people live in a persistent solipsism, that their perceptions and extensions of them are the only things that really exist in their consciousness. And I think that is far more common than any of us want to admit, because it's a scary thought. And I do think eventually I'm going to get to content, maybe next Wellness Wednesday, about that responsibility for social outcomes, because I work with a lot of people with autism who are recovering, trying to pivot from feeling like every social interaction that goes wrong is their fault. And, as much as certain types of autism therapy can help people navigate the world, can help people function, hold down a job, that kind of thing, that's the flip side to it, that people with autism do become, some feel like every time a discussion goes to shit, every time a fight starts, they did something wrong. And that's not necessarily true. Sometimes you have to have the fight. I've been dealing with a thing this week. It spilled over from last week where somebody, I was honest about something and somebody blew up on me. And in the ensuing fray, it turns out this is somebody who's been trashing me behind my back since 2022. So it's good that I found that out now. So the trashing stops. It stings to find that out. But was I really surprised? No. And that's when I start going, what was I doing in the first place? But this may come into, because, you guys may have seen the, those who listen to two women talking, it was the Song Gives Me Shit episode. I love that at the time. I was so freaking proud of Song, because I know when we first started doing that show, she would not have done that. So not only has Song come a long way, but also it's good to know, because then Eileen gave me crap for the same thing. And I know it, right? I know it. I know I eat too much shit. But, and here's an example of owning your shit. That's a choice, right? Because I know I am not girly. I am not cute. And so I have to take extra, because I learned it's way too easy for people to paint me as this unfeeling, cold bitch. And so I overcompensate, not to people please, to prove a point, so that when something blows up, or preventing it from blowing up, because in the back of their minds, the person knows there's evidence that if they try to smear me that way, it's not true. And of course, then, I've got a stalker who every little thing, every single thing that is innocent, she tries to make into something. And it's nice to see people finally telling her, enough with this obsession. Not that she's going to listen, but it makes me feel better that people say that. Even though I know she's getting attention, not getting attention doesn't make her stop. She just goes away for a while and comes back. So, sometimes things aren't fair. And so it's the Kobayashi Maru thing, right? You have to decide how to fail. That being said, I have tried to eat less shit this week, and that didn't go so well. 'Cause, what do? You go, okay, this is getting nowhere. I'm walking away, and nothing's solved. So it's really a no-win when, the other person isn't meeting you halfway and isn't, having a good faith attempt to solve the problem. This commenter said, I openly admit I'm not a fan of the suck it up, just get over it and pull yourself up by the bootstraps mantra when it comes to dealing with your struggles. But at the same time, you've hit the nail on the head. Overcoming one's problems require actual work on the individual's end. Just sitting there and wallowing in self-pity isn't going to solve anything. And yet again, like with people with like Will Wheaton, that's the danger of letting the victim mentality define you as a person. It basically doesn't solve anything or encourage actual emotional maturity or growth on your end. And it can be weaponized as a get out of jail free card. Because if you're always making yourself the victim, you can justify being an awful person and no one can call you out on it because you've had a bad life. Doubly so if you're the type of person who spent their entire life surrounded by enablers. Hell, that sort of toxic victim mentality is one of the many, many reasons why I think both the hardline left and right are so full of crap. But that's a whole other conversation. And I agree with you. You have to, it is hard at first to take responsibility, but not blame. Like, one of the reasons I backed this particular person I'm supporting, against someone who could make my life kind of miserable in the short term is because this person took ownership for the things like, I could have done that better. Yes, I messed up there. One person admitted where they think they went wrong, even if they were being too hard on themselves. And the other person really didn't take responsibility for anything. There were these apologies that were actually throwing another person under the bus, of the I never should have gotten involved variety, instead of, I said to them, it's not that you got involved, it's how you got involved. No, you're a liar. It wasn't a sincere apology. And so one person was being sincere and owning the mistakes they made, and the other person wasn't. Well, that makes it really easy who to believe. And I do think that, the community I want to build, I am fine with it staying small. I don't care about my SEO. I don't care about traffic. I don't care. I want quality over quantity. That's always been the way I've built what I do. I want fewer people, but good people, so that it is a community where people own it and no one is expected to be perfect. And, we're working on not picking each other apart. And not picking other people apart is very, very difficult when you're intensely self-critical. And I've had to walk away from a lot of things this week because I have been feeling, this is just honest. This is not me being a victim, and it's a bit juvenile, but it's honest. I've been feeling picked on. And that doesn't mean I have been picked on. It's just the way I've been feeling. Certain things hit certain buttons, and a part of me is a scared 10-year-old again. That's not me saying it's actually real. That's me saying this is how I felt. And the nice thing about saying how you feel is that you see the people who listen and care, and then you see the people who pretend to care but keep doing what they were doing, making things more difficult for you anyway. And you can't sort it out that way unless you take that vulnerability. And vulnerability doesn't have to gut you. That's the other thing. If you have enough self-concept and enough self-worth, you can, one, be humble and admit the stuff you're not good at. And two, you can be vulnerable, and if the other person doesn't take it, well, that's on them. So final comment, because I got to run. From the first time we threw some rocks at a saber-toothed tiger to where we are now, I'm not even sure we're the same species anymore. Minus the fact we'll cannibalize for each other for some views, not much left of that old resilience. But I feel the challenges we face have become digital, avatars talking and spewing our opinions or lack thereof, and this changes the game board, in my opinion. Resilience has become more mental than physical, and this challenge most aren't ready for. Having a cocktail of disorders from PTSD makes mental resilience beyond understanding sometimes, but I feel getting exposed to and doing your best to respectfully stay within your boundaries, try our best to understand and empathize, we can get that resilience back. Thanks, Leanna, quite helpful in these trying times. This is actually, when you talk to evolutionary psychologists, you talk to neuroscientists who actually work with the brain. Some neuropsychologists, sorry, not neuroscientists. We see that our brains get overloaded, and we blame technology, but it's actually just the sheer number of people we're dealing with in a lot of ways, the sheer number of opinions and how intense those opinions are. We do have a network in our brains that is obsessed with where we fit in the world. And if you're constantly having somebody tell you you're a terrible person, that's going to overwhelm you. Even if you don't believe it, it's going to overwhelm you because, our brains were not designed for this much, this fast. And that is important to keep in mind. The other thing is, human beings are living longer than ever as a rule. Like, we had a dip down because of COVID and whatnot. But life expectancy's doubled from the saber-toothed tiger days. So we have to run a much longer marathon in terms of feeling content. And I think a lot of people are demanding instead of accepting. And, there are a few things that will, when people weaponize therapeutic language, that makes me really angry because that's just abusive. When people can't own their anger or their aggression, that there's a reason I defend video games so much, because I had to learn to be aggressive. I've gotten very good at it. But I was a really shy kid. I was pushed around a lot. And that, aggression is not abuse. Aggression can be very useful. We have adrenaline and things like that for a reason. So I don't trust anybody that gets offended when it's suggested that they're aggressive. But I also don't, I should rephrase that. I don't trust anybody who treats mere aggression as a bad thing when, it can be hard to understand where aggression is coming from sometimes. Sometimes it's too aggressive, there's a mismatch. Why are you being so aggressive? It's not making sense to me. That's one thing. But aggression being inherently bad? No, it's not. And part of the reason I think there's so much anxiety out there right now is people can't express, like, damn it, I just want this. I want to do things. I want to do something more than just exist. Stop telling me to wait. Stop telling me to be patient. I want people to notice me now. I want community now. I want these things. Now, that doesn't mean you don't have to work for them. But, it's okay to want stuff. Wanting, I want this. Okay, now let's figure out how we're going to get it. Right? You can't just demand people submit to you. You can't just throw so much shit out there that people feel forced to placate you or else. Those aren't real friendships, never ever people aren't really motivated by insults. And the people who think they are, the people who insist they're okay with being insulted, I have never met a person who really is. They think they are. I absolutely believe they think they are, but they're so wounded inside that they are completely out of touch with their own motivations and behaviors, and that's really sad. But when somebody isn't in touch, you can't trust that person because they're out of control. And I do think that's where a lot of the lack of resilience is coming from, that people just hate themselves so much because they've been trained to, right? Like these things are taught. The unfortunate thing nowadays is some people just have shitty parents who didn't give them that sense of worth. They weren't nurtured as children. And we talk a lot about, the single parent family and all that. Conservatives love to hit on that. But you go back to World War II, I mean, the men were gone. Those were single parent families. And it wasn't those families. I mean, that was a trauma in and of itself. But the men coming back from the war messed up. And cultures all over the place just were like, we're just going to hope this goes away. We'll create a fake stable environment. And so what did that happen? Well, social roles got very important to identity. And so everybody lost the sense of an individual identity. And now we spend a huge amount of time fighting over identity. Instead of working out a problem, it's an arbitration on, is this person a good person? Is this person a bad person? And I really think it's much more productive to try to understand why somebody did something. And of course that won't get you the drama channel clicks. Like, of course not. There's a lot of people out there just monetizing drama. And yeah, you make money that way, but you have to live with yourself. And I just can't doing that. I'd rather do content that helps people. And, coming off of the worst birthday week I have had in a very, very long time, in terms of people actively taking cracks at me. was tempered by, somebody bought me one of the Trails games and somebody got me that Redbubble thing so that I could buy a cool Has Been Hotel shirt. And, it was mixed. And this is an example of I can focus on the bad parts, or I can focus on the people that took the time. And not just gifts, like acts of service are, gift giving. Those are love languages for some people. They're friendship languages for some people. Other people, they're really good at saying, hey, my line is I like the planet better with you on it. But, that's enough. Just I choose to focus on the people who gave me positive feedback. And I can't ignore the dumping on, but both matter. And you can make an active choice to focus on the good things. The bad things are still there, but your primary focus is on the good things. The bad things are in the peripheral, as opposed to focusing on the bad things so you undervalue the good. And focusing on the good, not ignoring the bad, but focusing on the good to get you through the bad. That is resilience. That is how it works in terms of, yes, as the commenter said, now it's not physical. Resilience is now mental and emotional. And, it's the Rocky quote. It's not how hard you hit. It's how hard you get hit and keep getting back up. I'm paraphrasing that. I always get that wrong. But that's the basic idea, is that, strength isn't violence. Aggression isn't violence. I strongly support people going out there and trying to get what they want out of life. That is a form of aggression. The Deadpool 3 trailer, it's an incredibly aggressive form of comedy. I love that crap. I'm watching the Masters of the Universe Revolutions right now too, and it's a love letter to variant figures, and it is so dumb and it is so great. Like you can see the plot twist coming a mile away, but it's so rewarding. Just because it's punchy action figure, which is great. Not everybody's gonna get it, and so we go, oh, it's shit. You got shit taste. Why do people feel the need to do that? Why do people feel the need to, instead of going, that's not my thing, we like different things, go, you're bad. For something as stupid as that, summarizing a person's entire character based on one like or dislike or statement. When people do that, it shows they're not resilient because they don't know how to keep it in bounds. So next week, it's probably going to be an interesting one. Manly Monday, I'm going to look at the Duluth model, finally, from last Friday. So we'll see you then. Until then, help support this channel. Become a monthly patron, patreon.com/LeannaK, or buy a one-time Leanna Care session for someone who can use it but can't afford it, coffee.com/LeannaK. Thanks for watching, and have a great weekend.